nation need to be in reconciliation? Must it be in reconciliation?
What must be what? What must be what? What must be what? What must be what?
Immigration, a pathway for citizens.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Well, I'm not sure if you heard it yet, but if not, you're going to hear it now. Unfortunately, former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, typically, in any other situation, not only would this just be unfortunate news, it'd be unfortunate news and people would kind of let it go. And former President Biden would just be allowed to just enjoy his last days in peace. Well, the reason why this announcement is causing such an uproar is because the level and the state of the prostate cancer, how developed it is, and what the White House and the administration knew prior to this all of a sudden announcement. Now, in that clip you just saw, that is back from 2022. And you heard Joe Biden say on that video, that's why him and so many others have been diagnosed with cancer. Now, here's the kicker. The press and many in the GOP had been requesting information from Joe Biden's doctor. And it was only because of the mental decline that we were witnessing in front of our eyes. The White House kept saying, oh, he's fine. You know, we're being 100% transparent, but refused to bring the medical doctor before the people, refused to allow the press to see the medical reports. Like, you know, with President Trump, when they made him take cognitive tests and get all types of health reviews, and the media would talk about it and talk about whether they thought he was mentally stable or not. You even got some left-wing extremists right now trying to call for Congress and for Democrats to invoke the 25th Amendment on President Trump. Now, they didn't make a move when Joe Biden was stumbling and falling all over himself and saying that his butt's been wiped, but now they want to activate this 25th Amendment. Bull crap. Now, in this video, I'm going to give you information from this article and this video clip that breaks down exactly why they say that the White House bamboozled the American people, and former President Biden's cancer is far more advanced than what they let on. The medical professionals let it be known. Cancer doesn't metastasize to a bone overnight. That's a process that typically takes 5 to 7 years. But let's get off into seeing just how deceptive the White House and the Democrat Party may have actually been to the people. We know that the cognitive decline, you got people still trying to deny that they knew, oh, he wasn't like that around me, even though we all saw it. I saw a clip of James Clyburn, the congressman from South Carolina, the older black guy. He talking about some, oh, I didn't notice anything. I still think Joe Biden can be president right now. That's just how disingenuous these people are. But let's get into this. Doctors say it's inconceivable Biden's cancer went undetected by his medical team, as Trump Jr. questions if diagnosis is a cover-up. Several doctors have said it's inconceivable that former President Joe Biden's aggressive form of prostate cancer went undetected by his medical team, as first son Donald Trump Jr. even questioned whether the health diagnosis was part of a cover-up. The 82-year-old former president was diagnosed Friday after doctors found a small nodule on his prostate during a medical exam earlier this month, with the cancer cells having spread to the bone, his spokesman revealed Sunday. His team said the cancer had been graded a Gleason score of 9, suggesting his form was among the most aggressive. A handful of medical experts were quick to question how the former president could be diagnosed at such a late stage, especially given that prostate cancer can be detected early with routine blood work, which is recommended for men over the age of 50. It is inconceivable that this was not being followed before he left the presidency, Dr. Howard Foreman said in a post on X. Gleason grade 9 would have had an elevated PSA level for some time before this diagnosis, and he must have had a PSA test numerous times before. This is odd, he added. I wish him well and hope he has an opportunity for maximizing his quality of life. Dr. Stephen Quay flagged similar concerns, saying Biden's type of cancer is the easiest to diagnose when it first starts and progresses. The PSA blood test shows the rate of cancer cell growth for even with the most aggressive form. It is a 5 to 7 year journey without treatment before it becomes metastatic, he said. Meaning it would be malpractice for this patient to show up and be first diagnosed with metastatic disease in May 2025, he continued. It is highly likely he was carrying a diagnosis of prostate cancer throughout his White House tenure, and the American people were uninformed. That's a picture of Biden's doctor. Medical analyst Dr. Mark Siegel also weighed in, telling Fox News that it was surprising Biden's illness was so aggressive given his high profile. I mean, he must have had the best possible care here. I'm a little taken aback that it's this far advanced, he said. Urologist David Schusterman speculated that Biden could have known for some time. The fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine, Schusterman told News Nation Prime. This is what I typically would see in a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid and hit that like button. I will never ask you for a cash app, and I will never ask you for a super chat. You hitting that like button, it helps a great deal because it helps spread the information out. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And then once you do, all you got to do is hit the notifications and then select all. And then that way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Here's opposing Donald Trump Jr. What I want to know is, how did Dr. Jill Biden miss stage 5 metastatic cancer, or is this just yet another cover-up? Prostate cancer is the easy, and this is the post from Dr. Stephen Quay. Prostate cancer is easier to diagnose when it first starts, and to watch it progress to bone metastasizes. The PSA blood test shows the rate of cancer cell growth for even with the most aggressive form. It's a 5 to 7 year journey without treatment. All right, so back to the article. Meanwhile, President Trump's son, Don Jr., went further and bluntly suggesting the news was hidden. What I want to know is, how did Dr. Jill Biden miss stage 5 metastatic cancer, or is this yet another cover-up? The first son wrote on Truth Social. The former first lady is not a medical doctor, but is called by the honorific by virtue of receiving a doctorate in education from the University of Delaware. Biden's team disclosed that the diagnosis came after the former commander-in-chief started having urinary symptoms. While this presents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management, his office said. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. Now, we're going to get into this video, but here's the kicker. Let me ask you, put it in the comments. Do you believe that the White House knew and they withheld it from the American people just like they did with everything else? I mean, we know that he was cognitively declining. They hid that from us. We know that his staff knew that he was sundowning. He was going down. As it got later in the day, things got worse. His team knew he was fumbling and bumbling over stuff, couldn't remember when his son passed away. They knew it, but yet they lied to you and I repeatedly. And then they even insulted our intelligence, told us that something was wrong with us. Our eyes were lying to us. The Republicans were trying to create another conspiracy. So now not only do we know from his own staff members that he was mentally gone, especially the last 2 years, if not the entire 4. See, everybody's trying to act like, oh, in 2022, after the midterm, I don't know what happened. But if you go back and you watch the debates from 2020, you can clear as day see there was a problem there. Something was wrong with President Biden. It just was. But yet they thought that we didn't know what we were talking about. They thought that they could pull the wool over our eyes and that nobody would ever notice it. Well, the joke's on them, because we did notice. And now everybody wants to make money on the fact that it was a cover-up. But the sad thing is that the people who got played the hardest was the American people. And these left-wing extremist libtards do everything they can to try to maintain power. They were willing to put a man up in the White House suffering from cancer, allegedly. Well, not alleged that he has cancer, but alleged that they were willing to prop him up, knowing the reports have come out that if he would have failed one more time, he would have been relegated to a wheelchair permanently. He couldn't stay up late to be able to take those phone calls, to make those hard decisions if the nation was facing an adverse situation. He wasn't there, so who was making the decisions? He couldn't even meet with his cabinet without them submitting preset questions that his staff was able to review and provide him answers for. As a matter of fact, in one of the last cabinet meetings they had, Jill Biden was the one who ran it. So let's get into this video where it goes more in depth about what's going on and how you and I may, or not even may, have been lied to, but let's just see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
That former President Joe Biden, several doctors say it's inconceivable that former President Joe Biden's aggressive prostate cancer went undetected by his medical team, sparking a firestorm of questions about how the diagnosis could have gone unnoticed, and even raising speculation from Donald Trump Jr. that the news might be part of a cover-up. The 82-year-old former president was diagnosed on Friday after doctors found a small nodule on his prostate during a medical exam earlier this month. Biden's spokesperson revealed on Sunday that the cancer cells had already spread to the bone, classifying the disease as advanced and aggressive. According to the statement, his cancer was given a Gleason score of 9, one of the highest and most serious grades assigned to prostate cancer. That detail immediately raised red flags among medical experts. Many say it's extremely rare, if not unheard of, for prostate cancer to be discovered at such a late stage in someone with Biden's access to routine and high-quality medical care. Dr. Howard Foreman called it inconceivable that this wasn't being tracked earlier. He noted that a Gleason grade 9 would have shown up through elevated PSA levels in blood tests well before this point. This is odd, Foreman wrote, adding that he hoped Biden could still find quality of life through treatment. Dr. Stephen Quay echoed those concerns, saying this type of cancer is typically easy to catch early on. He explained that even the most aggressive forms take 5 to 7 years to metastasize without treatment, suggesting Biden likely had the disease long before now. Quay stated bluntly that it would be malpractice for this to be the first time the cancer was discovered, adding that Biden may have carried the diagnosis through his White House tenure without the public's knowledge. Medical analyst Dr. Mark Siegel was also surprised by the timing and severity of the illness, saying it was unexpected given the former president's access to elite healthcare. And urologist Dr. David Shusterman went even further, telling News Nation that diagnoses like this are typically only seen in patients who haven't had medical attention in over a decade. He described the situation as pretty much unheard of in modern medicine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump Jr. didn't hold back in his reaction. On Truth Social, he suggested that Dr. Jill Biden may have known about the diagnosis and questioned whether this was yet another cover-up. Biden's team has disclosed that the diagnosis followed the onset of urinary symptoms. They added that while the cancer is aggressive, it appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for more effective management. His office said the former president and his family are currently reviewing treatment options with his medical team.
Wow. Man, that's, and I'm being real with you. One thing about Trump supporters, about MAGA, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I have never wished for the harm to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or any of that administration. I never wanted them to die or never wanted anything bad to happen to them. I just didn't like their policy. So the one thing I want to do is I just want to send love out to the Biden family throughout this time, because at his age, anybody dealing with that, I hope that he can enjoy his years with, as peaceful as possible under those circumstances, even though every decision that he made and that they made set your life and my life up to be harder, not easier. And it was done intentionally. That's what's really scary and what's sad. It makes you wonder, what is the Democrats' end game? You're willing to prop up an old man who is dying of cancer, who is mentally gone, just to maintain power? Now, we really know that auto pen was being used, and that's scary. What is it that we don't know about Kamala that they tried to hide? Are we going to find out that really there's a little mouse living in her brain and her face opens up and there's somebody in there with controllers running the whole thing? I mean, with the way she speaks sometimes, it wouldn't be too hard to believe. Or if maybe that person took the day off every time she has to give a speech and there's nobody controlling the levers. That's why she just spits out word salad. But either which way, the Biden White House did everything they could. And those Democrats knew it. They knew. Now, everybody might not have known about the cancer. I get that. But you think his wife didn't know? His children didn't know? His press secretaries didn't know? His physician didn't know? That's why they never wanted to bring him out. And they talk about being so transparent. That was the least transparent administration that I've seen in my lifetime. And I'm 46. And I track history. Even prior to my lifetime, there's never been an administration as closed off and as deceptive as the Biden administration. There's never been a president as less visible. Even FDR, who had polio and couldn't walk, made more public appearances than Biden. And he was still, and the general public still did not know, the vast majority of them, that he was unable to walk. It wasn't until more modern times that people found out, because he was there giving his speeches. He was propped up standing, or he was sitting in the car. They set the stage where you wouldn't be focused on whether he was standing or not. You was focused on the words that he spoke. With President Biden, it was absolutely the opposite. Everything else looked so toe up that you were hoping the words that he spoke was going to change your mind. But all it did was reinforce what your eyes were seeing. This man was falling apart. He was being propped up. He was walking across the White House lawn saying his butt's been wiped. And I don't know if you saw that video clip, but if I find it, I'll add it. But it's just crazy. So now here we are. After getting thrown out of the race and Kamala getting thrown in, then he started making his tours again on the circuit. Ain't it funny that right when Biden pops out and starts making appearances on TV, all of a sudden, this diagnosis comes out and is made public? What do you think that's going to do? People are going to stop booking him. They're going to start saying, Joe needs to stay home. We shouldn't book him. Joe shouldn't be out traveling. He should be home getting well. They want that man out of the way because they feel like every time the public sees him, they remember just how tumultuous the last 4 years was. As if even when he's not in the picture, the American people are too ignorant or to remember. Now, granted, a lot of people do have short-term attention spans, but not that bad. Not that bad. Things were so horrific over those 4 years. It's going to be a minute before we remove the stain of this wide open borders and insane inflation. But hey, you know, it is what it is. So now here we are, another cover up coming out of the Biden White House. And this is going to do nothing more but damage the Democrats even more. They're already in the dumps. Now they're going beneath the dirt, way to the center of the earth is how low they're going. But tell me what you think. You think it was a cover up? You think they knew and just didn't tell us? Or is this something a doctor just missed and they just found out? I want to know your opinion. But if you've watched up to this point, I want to say thank you. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Really do appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Most importantly, please, you be safe and you stay great. I'm Brian Maxwell, and I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.